Welcome to Next Level Conversations. I am Shantae, your host, and I am so glad you guys are joining us on tonight. We are going into our second episode as we are talking about stepping out of the chaos. I created Next Level because we wanted to empower women with tools, actionable tools that they could use to implement in their life. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sharing real life stories of women who have successfully managed challenging situations. And our hope is that we will provide you support, encouragement, and inspiration on your journey as you find balance in chaos. All right, so we are going to pick up just a brief recap of last week's show. For those of you who are just joining us, we started talking about stepping out of chaos. And we were talking about 4 pillars that we're using. The first pillar being awareness, the second being intentionality, the third being consistency, and the last being mindfulness. And so last week we began to talk about awareness. And in our talk about awareness, we addressed 2 things, 2 tips to help us become aware. And the first was identify where you are. And what does that mean? That means asking yourself a series of questions. Where are you in your emotions? Where are you physically? Where are you mentally? Where are you with the people in your life? Where are you with your finances? Where are you in every aspect of your life? Because if any of you are Bible scholars, the first question that God asked Adam in the Bible, and the first question ever asked to man was, where are you? And so in order to begin to transform our life and step out of the challenging situations that we find ourselves in, we have to be able to answer that question, where are we? And so that's what we started out with on last week. Just kind of asking ourselves, where am I? Where am I in life? Where am I with the people in my life? Where am I with my thoughts? Where am I with the way that I feel? And from where are you, we begin to ask the second question. Just like God, when man failed, when Adam and Eve messed up, God asked Adam, where was he? And the very next thing, because what God knew, he recognized where man was, but he also recognized where he wanted to take man. And so the second part of becoming aware is asking, where are you? And where do you want to go? Getting a clear vision of who you want to be, where you want to go in your life. If you want to go from sadness to happiness, if you want to go from misery to peace, if you want to go from anger to joy, if you want to go from beauty, from ashes to beauty, where are you? Getting clear on where you want to go. So those are our two steps of awareness. Where are you and where do you want to go? And so tonight we're going to pick up on our second pillar, which is being intentional. Anywhere you want to go in your life, where you are in your life, it is not a coincidence. And getting to the place where you want to get to, doing the things that you want to do, and living the life that you want to live, it has to be intentional. You have to set your tone and set your intentions. And it's not easy because as you are making this vision and this plan for your life, life is going to continue to do what life does, right? So I want to tell you guys, we started last week and I was telling you guys about my own story. And we're going to pick up with that. So just a simple recap. I left 2015 broken, confused, knowing that I wanted to change. And I was moving towards a broken Shantae to a healed Shantae. And so as we talked last week, with me and God, we laid out this plan because I didn't know how to get there. I began to visualize what I wanted it to look like and what Shantae looked like. And I began to study the character of God. So I knew what my plan was. And I had this great plan. We and God had this great plan. And so we began to work on it. We began to work on it. And at the time, life was still chaotic. Nothing had changed except for the fact that I became aware of where I was and where I wanted to go. And what I realized in the midst of that is I had a few problems because I wanted to move. I wanted to go somewhere. I wanted to change. I had a vision for my life. I did. But at the same time, life was still lifing. Everything was still the same. I was deep in my study. I was focusing on the character of God. Remember, I was telling you guys last week about how I began to study the character of God, and I began to really dive into him and the people who embodied his character. And so I was focusing on change. I was focusing on going somewhere. But my third problem took place because at the time that I was in this place of chaos, what I didn't realize and didn't fully appreciate was that my husband at the time was also in chaos. So that's the thing that I want you to realize, that if you are in a state of turmoil, if you are going through, it's not just affecting you. Everybody in your life is also being affected. So we were in this state, which trouble was not anything new to us, but this level that we was in, and the I guess you pretty much say the piling on of it had become so intense. It was a place that we had never been before. And so we both at the same time, unconsciously, I guess, we made the decision that we were both going to change. The thing is, he went out and I went in. So while I'm in this transition phase, right? I'm studying God. I'm doing all of these different things as I'm working to move out of the broken place that I'm in and going from a broken Shantae to a healed Shantae. He decided that he was going to basically disappear on me. And so in the midst of this, and this is what I'm saying, life continues to happen while you're in the middle of your transformation. And so you have to learn how to continue to move and continue to stay focused and continue to be goal oriented while things are going on. And so, and that's exactly what happened. And so what did my life look like at the time? My life looked like it was crazy. It was crazy because when I say my husband basically checked out, he went out. He decided that he was going to deal with his chaos in a totally different way, in his own way. Totally respect that. But he became a ghost in our marriage. He did. He became a ghost in our marriage. He stopped coming home. He started acting as if he was single. When he was married, we were very much married. Matter of fact, we had been together at this time for 20 years. And he wasn't talking to me. He would he would wait until I went to bed before he would even come to bed so that he could avoid having to have a conversation with me. We weren't intimate, and I know I'm giving y'all all my business, but that's okay. But we were not. And to the extent that we would every now and again, it was so sporadic. And I was trying to talk to him, but he wouldn't talk to me. We spent no time together, and he was basically avoiding me. He was avoiding me, and we became shadows, basically passing each other in the night. And so while I'm in the middle of trying to figure things out, trying to go from a broken Shantae to a healed Shantae, because I really thought, I'm like, I want to get changed. I'm changing. Everybody's going to get on board. Yeah, no, didn't quite happen like that. And that's okay. That's really okay. Because what I now know is that God was using all of that for my benefit, so that he could grow me, so that he could take me to the place that he wanted to take me to. But I got to tell you, while I'm studying the character of God and while I'm working on myself, all of this stuff is happening, and I was really lost. I was hurt. I was completely hurt. I was confused. I was a female, so I was mad. Okay. I was really angry. And so I wanted to lash out. I was I was angry. I was I felt one of the words that I think I kept using was I felt discombobulated because and a little bit of my anger was directed at God because I was like, God, I have finally gotten to a point where I'm trying to get my life right and listen to you and follow you. And my marriage is going crazy. So I'm confused. But at the same time, I felt more settled. And I know that that sounds so crazy. I felt a whole lot more settled because there was finally a plan in place to fix everything that was broken. God was moving and there was a plan, but at the same time, it was crazy. So it was the best of times and the worst of times, all in the same space. And to make matters worse, so he was disappearing. He wasn't around. And I'm wanting to respond, but I'm focused. I'm focused. I really am. And so what as things progressed, what ended up happening was he came in one day. I had finally got him to sit down. I was strategic with it. Don't judge me. I had finally got him to talk to me. Told me was not what I expected. I expected absolutely anything and everything, but I was not expecting the response that I received from him. And what he ended up saying to me was that he wanted a divorce. He said he was not happy in our marriage and I had kept him from everything he had ever wanted and he wanted to do him. Don't ask me what that meant because I just don't know. Still don't. But I was and I remember saying, God, this can't be real. This literally cannot be real. And so in the middle of the already chaos that I was in to get me to this place, life hits again. And so my dilemma was, how do I continue to transform? How do I continue to move? How do I continue to go where I'm where I'm oh wow, life is doing what it's doing. And that's the place we always find ourselves in, because when we start changing and when we start making adjustments and changing things in our life, we really think that people are going to get on board and that life is now going to be just all peaches and cream and beautiful and loving. And the reality is that it's not. Things continue to happen. But what God began to do at that time was so, what I call absolutely amazing. I don't know what y'all gonna call it, but what I call it was absolutely amazing, because what he began to do was God was talking to me. Remember, I'm studying the character of God at this time, and I am working to embody God's character. And so what God kept saying to me was, one, he kept saying, it's working for you, Shantae. It's working for you. I'm not gonna lie. I didn't see the it's working for me part. But what God would tell me, what he said to me was, especially when my ex-husband came in and he told me that he wanted a divorce, because that was boom, that just threw everything completely off, right? And my whole life was just, I don't get it, because when I was doing what I wanted to do, God, and when I was not putting you first and I was making all the decisions, yes, it was a mess, but I had a marriage. You know, I had a husband. We were cohesive one. I'm confused about where we are right now. But what God began to tell me, he began to tell me, and he would tell me this every day. He would tell me this every day, all day. He would say, you have to change your response. Keep yourself focused on what the goal is, Shantae. We have a place that we are taking you to. And so my response to this level of chaos was different to all the other responses that I used to have. So what did I start doing? I literally focused on the goal and I stayed in position every day like God instructed me. Well, what does that look like, Shantae? Well, while he was doing crazy stuff, like not coming home, because even after he asked for a divorce, it was still a period of time before he left. In addition to that, when we were in our separation period, he would not speak to me at all. Like, we became strangers to one to another. And so I was confused and I was hurt. I had never experienced heartache before. I had never, he was my first real relationship, and we had been together since I was 19 years old. So all of it was totally different for me. And so I was extremely, extremely hurt. But what God would tell me is stay focused, and Shantae, stay in position. And so as I was going through different things, he would ask me, how would a healed you respond to this situation? And I would just be like, okay, well, this is what I would do. And I was studying the character of God, right? And I was studying the people who embodied his character. And so I began to get even deeper in how they handled situations. And so I had to change my thought. I had to hold my tongue. Like, I wanted to break some stuff. I wanted to be psycho. I wanted to stalk him. I wanted to cut up his car, his clothes, whole 9 yards. I mean, judge somebody else, don't judge me. But that's exactly where I was. But God began to really challenge me. And he began to say, if you want to go where it is that you want to go, you're going to have to change the way that you respond to every single thing. And is the way that you're thinking, is that an embodiment of me? Are your thoughts the thought of Christ? Is your character the character of the person that you want to become? Are you talking like who you want to be? We have a goal. You're going somewhere. And so your actions have to change and you have to stay focused. So I learned to be silent. I learned how to change my response. I learned how to temper my emotions and stop being controlled by my emotions. I learned how to step out of everything that was happening and get some better perspective. But most importantly, I really began to focus on me, right? I became so very, very, very intentional. It was amazing. So when I say this, I really focus on 4 things that God really took me through, right? We became aware. And there was a controlled environment. I controlled my environment. And God always reminded me, remember the goal and stay in position. So what exactly did that look like? What exactly did that look like? What I did was I created a space because I had to become intentional for the place that I was in right now. I had to be intentional. So I created what I call a safe space. And in this safe space, God directed me to a very small subset of people who I could talk with, who I could purge with, who I could be safe with. It was a very small spot. It was a very small space. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say control your environment. It was a very small space. And so what I began to do was I would talk to those folks and I would really, really, really talk. And so one of the things that I'm gonna tell you something that happened, because when my husband first asked for a divorce, I was speaking with my boss. Y'all remember the one I told you he always woke up pre upset, and so that changed my mood or whatever. And so I was talking with him the day after it happened, and he looked at me and he said, nobody's going to be able to help you with this, but what's going to happen is everybody's going to watch how you handle it. And for whatever reason, that really changed, that crystallized something for me, because I recognized that everybody was paying attention, was going to be paying attention to the way I handled the situation that I was in, because it was done very publicly. God did not allow my heartbreak to be done in a private sector. It was done very publicly. And so I had to understand that, and I had to monitor that. And so I created I created this safe place, and God directed me to a few people to talk with. And that's what I began to do. I began to do something that I had never done before. I began to talk. I said I was not going to hold everything like I normally did. And so I began to talk, and there was no judgment. If I was having a good day, it was cool. If I was raging, none of them judged me. If I was talking like a psycho, they were just kind of like, but they also kept me in line, because even when I wanted to go out and do things that were contrary to the will of God and the purpose and the goal, I was, one of my really good friends, one of the really good friends that I talked with that was part of this safe space, she told me, she was like, just because he goes out and he's not fulfilling his obligation does not mean that you are exempt from fulfilling yours. You're still married. You're not divorced. And so I couldn't do anything. And they would constantly remind me, and God would constantly remind me, don't get out of position, because then that will disqualify you from what the other side looked like. And so I created a safe space, and we talked. The other thing that I did, as I was being intentional in creating this environment and staying in position and staying focused on the goal and basically staying in my lane, I cried a whole lot. That's one thing that I did not do. Okay. I did not let people see me cry. I did not let people who hurt me see me cry. Now, I am a worshiper, and so I'll fall out on the floor in worshiping, but crying over hurt, crying over things that people did to me, I didn't do it. I held it in, because that was part of my persona. That was part of I'm a strong woman. I'm not a broken woman, and I can handle it. But in this season, because of where I wanted to go, and that's what God kept reminding me, stay focused on the goal. What would a healed Shantae, and what gets us to a healed Shantae? You want to be like David. David cried out to the Lord. And so I found that it wasn't a weakness to cry. It wasn't a weakness to let things out. And so that's what I did. I cried. I did, y'all. When I say I cried my heart away. And so in my safe place. The other thing that I did was every single day, without fail, I ate the words from God. What God did, and the Bible is really real. The Bible is really real when it says that man should not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of God. And when it says that, when the Bible talks about how God would feed you every day and he would drop manna from heaven, every single day, God would send me a word. He would send me something in all different forms. And I was intentional. I was intentional about looking for what he sent me. I was intentional about receiving his word. I was intentional about eating it all, using it all. Every single morning, and it will come in different forms. So it may be that one morning I would wake up and there would be a scripture, and that scripture would literally fuel me for the day. It's like God knew at every step, every part of the day, what it was that I needed. And so once I realized that he was doing that, man, every day I was looking for that word from God. I was looking for my manna, and I was intentional about it. When I would go on Facebook or on Instagram, something would be there to get me through the day. And I was also very intentional about the things that I let in. If there was any level of negativity, I knew that it wasn't from God. It wasn't from God. And so at this time, while I'm being intentional and while we're doing this, I'm learning the voice of God, because remind you, I've been studying. I've been studying what God sounds like. I've been studying his character. So I've been studying, and I know the type of words that he uses. So I'm learning what he sounds like. And so anything that didn't sound like God, there was rejection for it. I could feel it in my soul. And so I was eating the things of God. I literally, I didn't watch all different types of TV shows. I didn't listen to different music. I was very intentional because I was trying to go somewhere, and I was focused, and I was eating God's word every day. The other thing that I did was I journaled. And I had always been a on again, off again journaler for quite a while. But during this particular time in my transformation, I just, especially when my husband asked for a divorce, I remember that I was laid out, and I was just like, I just don't know what I'm going to do. And God got me up, and he sent me to Barnes and Noble, and I got a journal, and he told me, I'm going to feed you every day. I'm going to give you what you need every day on this journey. And what I want you to do is I want you to write it down. I want you to talk about how you're feeling. I want you to talk about what it is that you're going through. And then I would also cut out every piece of manna I got from God on that day. If it was a scripture, I cut it out and I put it in my book. Everything I got from God. And that became so therapeutic, and it kept me focused. It did. It kept me focused, and it kept me intentional. And the last thing that I did was I exercised. And we're going to pick up, and we're going to talk about that on next week. But I exercise because my life is in a beautiful state and a horrible state at the same time. I'm changing. I can see the change. I'm moving. I'm going somewhere. There are things happening. But at the same time, the relationship that I've had for 20 years, the relationship I've been in for 20 years has fallen apart. And so it was the best time and it was the worst time. And I had a lot of energy. And I needed to do something with that energy because there were things that I wanted to do and I couldn't expel all of that energy. So I began to exercise, and it made a huge difference. And so this was every day. And every day God would remind me when I wanted to slack, remember the goal. Remember the goal, Chantel. You have to be intentional about what you're doing. You have to participate in this every single day. So what I did was a daily check-in. I was in a daily check-in. I was being aware every day. I was asking myself questions. How are you feeling today? What are you thinking about today? What are you doing today? How are you speaking to yourself today? I controlled my environment. I monitored who was around me. I monitored who I allowed in, who I allowed to speak to me, who I talked to. And I remembered the goal. Remember the goal. Everything is focus on the goal. Why are you doing what you're doing? And that's what that was essential. And the last thing is I stayed in position. So what does that mean? I would ask myself questions. This was a daily check-in, y'all, daily. I walked through all of this stuff daily. Shantae, are you responding like a healed person, or are you responding like a broken person? Are you doing things that's taking you to where you want to go, or are you not? And that's how I created this space to be intentional every day. And let me tell you the benefits of being intentional. One, it moves you closer to your goal. It keeps you focused. It creates daily action, and it makes you the focus of your life. So if you are in your state of transition, you have got to become intentional. You got to check in every day. You have got to ask yourself every day, am I moving where I want to go? Am I controlling my environment? Am I remembering what I'm doing? I done forgot the rest of them, Don't judge me, y'all. Do not talk about me. But are you aware? Are you asking yourself, how am I feeling? Checking yourself, because you are the most important person in your life. And so you have to be intentional about checking in on yourself, asking yourself, where are you today? Where are you? It was like it's a everyday thing. We're going to be talking about 4 pillars, but there are 4 pillars that you do every day. Every day you got to be aware. and check in. What does my environment look like? What am I focused on my goal? And am I staying in position? And there are benefits to all of this. And so as we're getting ready to transition out and begin to take some questions, I'm anxious to hear from you guys. I want to just remind you, I want to remind you that to get from where you are to where you want to go, you have to be intentional. You have got to be intentional. You got to be aware and you got to be intentional. And we're going to talk next week about being consistent, because that's our third pillar, consistency. And so I do want to encourage you guys to follow us on social media. I will tell you that what I did was I created a book. As I was talking about my journal, I created a book. The first book, Don't Be Bitter. You can pick it up on Amazon, and basically it is a day by day what my life looked like during the first part of the as I was going through a divorce. How God fed me. It's all the things God gave me and how he just energized me and just kept me alive as I was intentional and I was aware. And so you get the benefit. Unfortunately, all of it is not pretty. I'm not going to pretend that it is. It's some of it is pretty raw and ugly, because in this first book, I cried a whole lot, like I said, but it was real and it's my story. And so you can pick that up on Amazon, but you can also follow us. You can follow us on social media. You can connect with us. Next Level Magazine, Next Level Podcast. You can connect with us on YouTube, Instagram. We're doing all sorts of things as we are helping you take your life from chaos to balance and giving you tools to implement in your life. In your life, these are tools that you can use, questions that you can ask, so you can go from where you are to where you want to be. I want to thank you guys. And so